أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أمير المؤمنين والأئمة المعصومين عليهم السلام. والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين وشفيع المذنبين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الحكيم وهو أصدق القائلين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هل يسمعونكم إذ تدعون أو ينفعونكم أو يضرون؟ قالوا بل وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. It's due to that kindness and mercy that we get these opportunities where we gather in remembrance and in glorification of Him, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And we send our condolences to our 12th and living Imam Al-Hujjah, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And to each and every one of you as we gather with the continuance of our remembrance of the Shahadat of Aba Abdullah alayhi salam and the Shuhada of Karbala. Yesterday we talked about a characteristic that is found in many human beings which prevents their self-growth and self-progress towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today we discuss another one of these characteristics that many human beings have, which prevented themselves or prevent them from continuing the mission of Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, or the objectives that have been laid out by Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, which are thus the objectives of our 12th Imam. And the characteristic that we're going to be talking about today is stubbornness or bigotry. There's a connection between stubbornness, which would lead to one becoming a bigot over time. And I know we have heard of these words like bigotry, but there's a very specific meaning to what it means to be a bigot. And we're very quick, to say that Trump was a bigot, for example, or Trump is a bigot, right? And I think half the times we don't even know what that means. But it's very easy to look at someone else and say that they are a bigot, when sometimes in our own selves there is bigotry. And in the moments when my opinions are challenged, my bigotry will come out at those moments. And we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this today, and we'll talk about this tomorrow as well. When we look at the characteristic of stubbornness, let's just start with that. We find that stubbornness was a major characteristic of the people who were there in Karbala, opposing the Imam alayhi salam. You can imagine the level of stubbornness that we saw, where the Imam alayhi salam was the most eloquent, the most beautiful, the most noble individual alive at that time. There is no doubt about that, right? Even though others may not believe that, we fully believe that, and therefore when he spoke, his voice carried. When he used certain words, those words were impactful, that for any soul that was looking for something, they would be attracted to the kalam of the Imam alayhi salam. But then you look on this side where you had, according to certain accounts, 30,000 people who were there, right? And they must have had such stubbornness, right? That the kalam of the Imam alayhi salam had no effect on them, right? It's remarkable. You have to think about that. We have to ponder about this. That how is it that these people prayed, they fasted, they gave zakat, they did all of these things, they read Quran, yet the kalam of the Imam had zero effect on them, right? And one of the answers is because they came into that battlefield, that land, already having made up their minds about fighting Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. They had already made up their minds. And that's what stubbornness is, isn't it? That I've already made up my mind. And once I come into that gathering, if my mind is made up, I don't care what is being said, I don't care who is saying it. If my mind is made up about something, I am not going to listen to what those people have to say, but I'm going to argue everything that they have to say, right? Like we quoted yesterday. Habib ibn Madahir said to them, give the Imam some time to pray. What was their response? Imagine the level of hatred they had, right? To say, tell Hussein his salah will not be accepted. Allahu Akbar. Yeah? And he is the grandson of the Prophet, you know, and he is the closest one to the Prophet that existence at that time. And so you see that we see this quality in Karbala, and like I've said, right, that in the sphere of akhlaq, we see everything happen in Karbala, both from the good and the bad. And we need to learn from both, right? We need to learn from both because we don't want to make that same mistake again, right? This was done. You know, the analogy that is given is that, you know, there were 12 imams that came, right? And I remember my teacher giving us this analogy. And they said, like, you know, you'd have a street lamp, for example, a street light. And the city pays for your street light. And then you throw a rock, and the kids throw a rock and they break that street light, right? The city may come and repair that street light. They may repair it once, they may repair it twice. God sent 11 street lights to us, who were there to illuminate the path for us. All 11 were let down by the ummah, not anybody else. They were let down by the ummah. Right? God's not going to send the 12th light until the ummah is ready. And so we have to look at Karbala as through this lens of how I can take these lessons to better myself towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we're going to be talking about stubbornness and the quality of being stubborn, right? The quality of being stubborn is found, I would say, in all human beings, right? All human beings. They're stubborn about certain things in their lives. Sometimes that stubbornness would be dealt with, right? Like in my house, I need chai every morning. Your wife may get tired of it, but she will deal with it, right? The chai has to be boiled and not a tea bag just in she'll deal with it, right? And that's a form of stubbornness that I have to have it this way. There are other examples of benign stubbornness, right? So for example, my undying commitment to a sports team, for example. I'm a fan, right? And I am committed to being a fan of that team, through thick or thin. Whether that team is losing, I'm going to be with them. When the team is winning, I'm going to be with them. That's my stubbornness to that team. Without any valid reason. There's no reason for me to be stuck to that team except of stubbornness. I have decided that I am sticking with this team. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And we see many examples of this, right? Like my stubbornness of wanting a double-double from Tim's every morning. Right? Even if the line is so long, I will still stay in line to get that double-double. Now there's no other explanation, is that I'm a little bit stubborn about it, right? Like I need my Tim Hortons. So we see examples of being stubborn that are benign, you would say. They don't really harm anybody. And the people who have to deal with that stubbornness, because of their love for you, they will deal with your stubbornness in those areas. But then there are other times when our stubbornness will actually cause harm to us. Yeah? Our stubbornness will actually cause harm to society. For example, my firm commitment belief that my race is superior to your race. Yeah? My firm belief that my culture is better than your culture. Right? My firm belief that the language I speak is superior to the language that you speak. And this type of attitude, right? We see it everywhere in the world that we live in. Right? We see it happening in America so clearly. We see it happening in Germany. We see it happening in France, where you're an immigrant, you're not as good as me. Except when you win us the World Cup, then okay, we'll accept you, for example. Right? When there is something good I can take from you, I will take you at that time. But otherwise, I am superior to you. Right? And what makes this form of stubbornness ridiculous is that it is not based on any type of fact or logic. It is based simply on conjecture. It is based simply on opinion, right? There is no fact that one color is superior to another color. There isn't. There is zero fact, right? There is no fact that one culture is superior to another culture, right? These are things that are passed on to us from our fathers and our grandfathers, and this is how we continue to live that psyche today. You know, if you want to identify what have we been innately created with, you look at children, right? You look at children and how children act and how children behave. That will tell you what God has innately created us with. So for example, children are automatically desirous of things. They are haris, right? Where if you give, for example, you have two babies and you give each baby a toy, they will want each other's toy. And not only will they want your toy, they want to keep their own toy. We see this in children all the time, right? And so you see that this quality of being desirous is innate within us. God has created us with that. But then He wants us to use it to be desirous of Him, not toys. You understand? Likewise, racism. If you look at this idea that I'm better than you for a particular reason, like my color, my race, whatever it is, it's not something that is innately created with us, right? We're not Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We're not created with this. And why? Because we see it in our children, yeah? We see it in our children, that they're not born thinking that they are better than other people. It is taught to them that they are better than other people. You know, I'll give you a personal story. True story. I have true stories every day, alhamdulillah. My daughter was like 5. I think she was 4 or 5. And we were watching a basketball game. And there was a team that had black uniform and a team that had white uniform. For those who follow basketball, there was the San Antonio Spurs versus the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, they were playing versus each other. And San Antonio was wearing black uniforms. And one of the players from the San Antonio team who was wearing the black uniform, he stole the ball and he went and he dunked the ball. And so my daughter, who was 4 or 5, yeah, she said, wow, that black guy made an amazing play. And my jaw dropped. Yeah? My jaw dropped. Because first of all, he was white. Yeah? But why was she talking like that, right? Like, why was she talking about skin color? Because we never did that in our house. We've never said this brown guy, black guy, this kala. Never in our house, right? We don't believe in that nonsense. And then, of course, my wife is the smarter one, you know? So she looks at my daughter and says, oh, because he's wearing a black uniform? And she's like, yeah, of course. Yeah? She wasn't looking at the skull. I thank Allah. Yeah, one of the moments I did sajda. Yeah? Because she wasn't looking at the skin color of that person. She was looking at the clothes that person was wearing and thus labeled him as the black person, right? And then my wife gave me an example. We were at the store and I was in line behind another lady wearing black clothes, another white lady, and she said, oh, Papa's behind that black lady, right? And my wife at that time put two and two together. God does these things to remind us and teach us, right? But it taught me, for example, that until that age, she still didn't see color, right? And that's when we talk about racism, when we talk about being prejudiced, when we talk about thinking I am superior to somebody else, God does not create us thinking we are superior to someone else. Yeah? God does not create us thinking that we are better than somebody else. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The one who is superior in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is most God conscious. That's what he says. Not black or white, not brown and this, nothing, right? It's the one who is the most God conscious. So when you take this example, and there are so many other examples like this, we find that these examples are not based on any type of fact or logic, right? My firm belief, my stubbornness to say that this is better than that, right? That this race is better than that, my way is better than that way, is not based on any type of fact or logic, right? It is simply based on that which has been passed on to me from generation to generation, and not have any type of founding or grounding from which I develop that thinking. In the ilm of akhlaq, this characteristic of stubbornly believing that I am superior to someone else, stubbornly believing that my way is better than someone else's way, is known as ta'assub. Yeah? Ta'assub. A person who practices this type of stubbornness or bigotry is known as muta'assib in Arabic, right? Now, what is ta'assub, right? We have a very lovely tradition from our fourth Imam as-Sajjad alayhi afdalu salatu wassalam. Muhammad. He says that blameworthy and punishable ta'assub, blameworthy and punishable ta'assub is when a person considers, now listen to this definition that the Imam alayhi salam is given. He says that it is when a person considers the evil people of his own community to be better and prefers them over the good people of another community. Yeah? Ta'assub means that I will take the worst from my community and still say that they are better than that other community. Yeah? He says it is not considered ta'assub to love one's own community. That's not ta'assub. Of course we love our madhab. Of course we love our people. Of course we love our language. Of course we love our culture. These are important things, right? But ta'assub, he says, that's not ta'assub to love your own culture. It's not ta'assub to love your own people, but rather it is ta'assub when a person loves them in spite of the wrongdoing that they do in their lives. Yeah? That just because you are my people, I will accept what you have to say. Right? Just because you speak my language, I'm going to be okay with what you say. This is where we said, this is ta'assub, right? This is bigotry. This is why we said Donald Trump fits the definition of bigotry. Right? When we looked at the Charlottesville riots that happened a year ago, if you remember, in Charlottesville, when all the white nationalists came out and then they ran over a lady, right, protesting. And then what did Donald Trump say? Right? He said, well, there were good people. There were good people on both sides. Yeah, they were not all bad. Why? Because they were his own people. Yeah, they were his own skin color. There were people who had similar views as he did, similar mentality as he did. Ta'assub is that when you make a mistake, I'm going to pass that, let it go, it's okay. Ye hamara hai. Yeah? He's from us. Yeah, it's okay, we can accept this. That is ta'assub. That is bigotry. That is stubbornness to the extent where I'm willing to do that. Now to break it down linguistically, okay, ta'assub comes from the root word asaba, ain sad ba. And its original meaning of asaba is something which holds two things together, something which binds two things together. And so the word for a bandage in Arabic, like if you sprain and you break something, they put a bandage on you, is known as isaba. Why? Because it is holding your bones together. When you go further with this meaning, it basically denotes any type of cohesiveness, any type of holding together, firm holding together between one's belief and actions. So anytime I firmly believe in something and I act out on that, it is known as ta'assub. Yeah? Now with that definition, are you all following? Right? With that definition, there is no doubt that sometimes there is a positive form of ta'assub. Right? So for example, I firmly believe that God told me to fast. So even though it's 19-hour days, I'm going to fast because God told me to fast. That's positive ta'assub, right? And there are many examples like that, where it can actually be something positive that I do, but more so than not, ta'assub always refers to something negative. Yeah? Like you shouldn't be proud if someone says, mutassibo. You shouldn't be like, oh, thank you. No, it's not something positive, right? It's not something that you need to like wear on your hat, like I am a ta'assub person, right? Muta'assib, or one who is ta'assub, one who has this level of firm conviction that leads to action, more so than not, is negative. Why? Because more so than not, it is not based on any type of fact or logic. It is based on emotion. Okay? We gave the example of my basketball team that I love. Yeah? Not based on fact. There's nothing to say the Lakers are factually proven to be the best, right? It's just that I'm from there and I love that team. So I'm going to stick to that team, right? Or there's nothing to say that one race is superior to another race. This is simply emotion, right? Or even when we come down to the fact that certain customs that certain communities have, they're not based on facts. Yeah, they're simply based on something that was passed on from one generation to the next. You Google this, you go and you Google this, I did for this lecture, strange customs from different communities, and you will see the things that people do, right? Amazing, right? And you will wonder that, my goodness, what are the people doing in this world, right? I'll give you an example. There is a community that is based in the Amazon, right? And this community, they're known as the Satare Mawe. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but the Satare Mawe live in the Amazon. And as a rite of passage from childhood to adulthood, the Satare Mawe make the kids, or they're about to be of that age of bulugh or the age of rushd, maturity, they make them go into the rainforest. And what they do is they go grab, or they find a bag full of bullet ants. Yeah? Now, I never heard of bullet ants before today, but what we're told about bullet ants is that when they bite you, it feels like you're being hit by a bullet. Yeah? That is why they're known as bullet ants. So they grab bags full of bullet ants, then they come back. Then they put some type of smoke on there that makes the bullet ants go to sleep. Right? And then the children, to prove that they are men, are told to wear that bag of bullet ants. And then the bullet ants wake up, and what happens? They bite them, right? And the sign of manliness is that you deal with the pain of those bullet ants, right? Now you look at that, right? And it's amazing, right? That they don't just do that once. A child, for them to be considered a man in that tribe, has to experience that 15 to 20 times before they can be considered a man, right? Now we wouldn't look at that and say, you know what? MashaAllah. That's factual. A man has to do that. No, right? You wouldn't. You're like, okay, that's your custom, but that's a little bit strange, right? That's a little bit weird. I'm glad I'm not a Satare Mawe. You know what I mean? Like that I don't have to do that, right? But it's not based on any fact. It's based simply on the fact that their fathers did it, and then their grandfathers did it, and then their great-grandfathers did it, and so I must do it as well. Why? Kana wajadna aba'ana. We saw our fathers doing it, so why can't we do it as well? You understand why, for the most part, right, stubbornness or ta'assub is considered to be a negative quality. Now, let's define what ta'assub literally means. We gave the description of what the Imam alayhi salam said. Ta'assub is defined in one of two ways. Like if we're just to look at one word of description. Actually, it's described in numerous ways. It's described as fanaticism, right? That's short for fan. You know, when you're a fan of a team, you're considered to be a fanatic for that team. It means you've lost your mind and you're stuck to that team. This is what fanaticism is, right? Or sometimes it is known as partisanship, right? Partisanship is prejudice in favor of a particular cause. That is what partisanship means. Sometimes it is known as bigotry. And this is the most apt translation, right? Bigotry. Why is ta'assub known as bigotry? Because bigotry means that I have intolerance. Listen to this meaning. I have intolerance towards somebody who has a different belief than I do, right? I have intolerance for that. I don't even want to hear it. Don't even talk to me, right? You don't know what you're saying. When you have that type of intolerance, by definition, you are a bigot, right? Especially if what you are stuck to is not based on any type of fact. It's not based on any type of reality. It is based simply on the fact that this is what I inherited and I'm going to stick with it no matter what. Okay? Now, we're not born with bigotry. We're not born with ta'assub. Ta'assub is probably one of the last stages of stubbornness that one gets to in the course of their lives. And there's a gradual progression that happens before one becomes a muta'assib, right? What does it start with? It starts with what is known as taqleedul a'ma. Yeah? It starts with what is known as blind following. Now, it's not derogatory to blind follow something, right? If you look at how people learn, especially children, psychologists say that children learn in one of two ways, and even adults to a certain extent learn in one of two ways. Besides opening a book, you can open a book and learn, now that's something else, but just naturally, we learn in one of two ways. One way that we learn is through association, right? So for example, I do something and something happens as a result. I have figured out that there is a link that exists here and there, and so now I have gained some new knowledge, right? For example, fire burns, right? When my daughter was 4, we kept telling her she had an interest on the stove for some reason. She would like to touch the stove. We kept telling her, Baba, don't touch the stove. The stove is hot, right? Don't touch the stove. And then what did she do? She touched the stove, yeah? And one day the stove happened to be on and she burned her finger, right fingertip. Since that day, she has never touched the stove again, yeah? Because she associated finally that touching the stove will burn. I may joke with you, but then I may joke about a subject that maybe you don't find so funny. And I will learn that, hey, with you there is this limit that I cannot cross. And so I have learned how to deal with people. We learn through association. We learn limits with association. We learn boundaries with association. The second way that we learn is through imitation, right? Especially children. Children learn through imitation. So for example, a child will see their parents praying, right? And automatically they will begin to imitate their parents praying. My 1-year-old does this, right? She sees me praying or she sees her mom praying, she'll grab a turba and go down and do a sajda, right? Not a sajda, but she thinks she's doing a sajda, right? But this is because she's simply learning and following through imitation. And this is why, like, even our Maharaja tell us that don't force children to pray. If you as a parent are exhibiting signs of Islam around your children, they will automatically pick up Islam. Yeah? They will automatically pick up these things. So if you're, for example, praying constantly in your house, and it's not something that your children rarely see you do, but they see their father and mother praying, they will imitate their father and mother praying, and they too will start praying. And so by the time that you have to teach them, they will know most of salah. You might just need to refine a few things, right? So taqleedul a'ma is something which is natural. Don't think of it as a bad thing, blind following. But there are times when blind following can be problematic, right? So for example, if in my house, my dad treats my mother like a servant, yeah? Make this, bring this, do this, ye kar lo, okay, all of these things. My children who are watching my father talk to my mother this way will eventually start treating their wives that way. No doubt, no doubt, yeah? Because they learn that habits from their father, right? Blind following, right? I see them acting this way, this is the way I think that they should act. If I see oppression in the world around me, and I tell my children, those people of Nigeria, we don't have to worry about them, yeah? They're black, we don't have to worry about them. Oh, they're far away, we don't have to worry about them, right? My children are making connections in their head. So next time they see someone in trouble, they will not assist them. Why? Because my dad said, don't worry about them, that's fine. And then when I get older and when I need my children's help, they won't help me at that time. Subhanallah, yeah? Everything, my brothers and sisters, has a link, right? Everything has a link. So blind following at certain times is counterintuitive. If it's especially passing on messages that are not found in any type of fact or logic. They're simply based on emotion. I think women are lower than me, so I'm going to treat them like they're lower than me. My children are going to start imitating that behavior and think women are lower than them. I think, for example, a certain color skin people are always going to be liars, so my children will learn that they're always going to be liars. Certain skin color people can't drive, so my children will learn that these people can't drive. Certain cultures are always late, my children are going to learn that these cultures are always late. We're passing on these messages to our children through blind following. But don't get me wrong, there are times when blind following can be positive, but there are other times when we're not doing it correctly, blind following can be something that is very negative. Now, blind following on its own, in most instances, is something which can be controlled, right? So let's say you have a person who is a racist, and we've seen examples of this. We've clearly seen examples of this. This person grew up thinking that their race was superior to somebody else's race. And then something happens in the course of their lives which makes them awakened, right? So maybe they think that my color skin is the best, and then one day they get into an accident and somebody of a darker skin helps them. And it shocks them. They're like, whoa, I didn't think that, right? Somebody doesn't like brown people. They go to the hospital, they're dealt with a doctor who's brown and he takes care of them, for example. For some people who have believed in these things simply because of taqleedul a'ma, they might be awakened to not think like that anymore. You follow me? Yeah? So if one is stuck in taqleedul a'ma, that in itself is not something which is detrimental unless that thinking becomes to the stage of being stubborn. I am stubbornly believing that my race is superior to your race. I stubbornly believe that this is right, and I don't care what you have to say to me, right? I will not believe you that this is another way of doing it. There's nothing you can tell me. You can talk to you blue in the face, but I have already made up my mind that this is the right way of doing it and we're not going to change. What's an example? We have an example for like climate change, for example, right? You look at climate change. Science has proven that there is a global warming happening, right? There are more and more hurricanes that are developing off the coasts. Glaciers are melting, right? But the Republicans and conservatives are, no, there is no such thing as global warming. No such thing as global warming. It's like they have their head in the sand, avoiding scientific fact. Why? Because it goes against what they believe in, what they rally their masses around. You take another example in America of gun control, right? The number of mass shootings in America, the number of mass shootings, yet they don't believe there's a gun problem in America. This is what we mean by stubbornness, my brothers and sisters, right? When facts are presented to you, yeah, they look at the number of people who have been killed. But what do they say when you prove them with facts? Our forefathers said we have the right to bear arms. That's their answer. You see the problem? The same thing we said, I feel I am superior to you. Why? Because my forefather told me I am superior to you. My forefathers taught me that this is the only way to do it. It's the same line that we see in anyone who is stubborn. Why are you like this? Because my ajdad told me that this is the way it should be done. My ajdad told me that this is the only right way it should be done. My forefathers told me that I have the right to bear arms. Who are you to take my arms away from me? Right? And so you're left with this argument of a group of people who believe that their way was right. Simply why? Because it got passed down from generation to generation to generation, against all logic or fact that comes from that, right? Now, it doesn't end there. You see already of the problem that exists with stubbornness. Do you see it or no, right? It doesn't end there. Where it becomes even worse is when that stubbornness turns to ta'assub. Yeah? The stubbornness turns to ta'assub. What is ta'assub? We said it is an intolerance for your opinion. Yeah? So when I'm stubborn, you can tell me, and I'm just going to deny it. No. Right? I don't even want to hear it. No. Right? But when intolerance happens, now I can't stand your opinion. Right? And I'm going to show you that I can't stand your opinion. So what am I going to do? I'm going to send WhatsApp messages about you so that the fitna is spread throughout the world. Yeah? I'm going to do violence against you. Right? I'm going to even, na'udhu billah, kill you. We see this happening in India, don't we? Right? In India, and the mob attacks that happen in India. Why? Because a guy works at a leather factory, for example, or he has a leather store, for example, and because of the level of intolerance that I have for somebody who touches leather, not only will I avoid that, I'm actually going to cause you harm in that avoidance, right? We see that with suicide attacks, whether it's happening in Afghanistan or Pakistan or in Syria or in Iraq. When one madhab has such levels of intolerance that they're actually going to blow up and kill as many people as they can. That is how ta'assub, yeah, is manifested. You follow what's happening here? You see why this line of thinking is so dangerous? This way of life is so dangerous. This, my brothers and sisters, is not something that just starts by itself. It is something that gradually develops over time. Now tomorrow we're going to continue this discussion, but I want to end today by looking at the Quran and describing these two levels that I've talked about. The first level is stubbornness. The second level now is bigotry, where I'm now intolerant to your opinions. And you will see that what I have just said in the last 40 minutes has been described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 1400 years ago. Yeah? Amazing, right? Like, we're not the only ones who are stubborn. We're not the only ones who are bigots. Bigotry has existed with all time. Let's look at two examples. The first example, we'll do it after a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first example we get is at the time of Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. Right? The first example is the time of Nabi Nuh. Now we're told Nabi Nuh preached for over 950 years. They say that he lived for almost 2,000 years, they say in some accounts. And he preached for 950 years. Now imagine, right? I've been the resident alim of a community for 8 years. And let me tell you, those have been the longest 8 years of my life. Yeah? I have like 15 gray hairs from those years. 950 years he preached to a community. And then he turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what does he say? He says something very beautiful in surah number 11, verses 5 through 7. قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. He says, Oh Allah, I have delivered your message and called my people, yeah, night and day. Laylan wa nahar. Night and day I have done tabligh. فَلَمْ يَزِدْهُمْ دُعَائِي إِلَّا فِرَارًا. And my constant preaching to them has led to nothing else except that they flee from me now. They see me, uh-oh, noon is coming, and they run away, right? And so he says, وَإِنِّي, listen to this, right? Listen to this. وَإِنِّي كُلَّمَا دَعَوْتُهُمْ لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ, and every time I call them to come so that you would forgive them, O Allah, جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ. They placed their hands in their ears and they covered their faces with clothes, ignoring me. Yeah? Seems childish, doesn't it? It's like a kid going, na, 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 na. Yeah? That's exactly what it is, right? What Allah is trying to tell us, think about this, that stubbornness because my ajdad did something, stubbornness because my ancestors did something is a childish quality, God says. Yeah? It's a childish quality that is not based on any type of fact or logic. Yeah? Now if you can couple that with fact, yeah? If you can couple that with logic, then be stubborn about it. But most of the things that we are stubborn about cannot be defended with logic, right? Cannot be defended with facts. It's a childish quality. Allah says this. I love it when God says something, you know? Allah says this, that these acts of stubbornness are a childish quality. Secondly, we take the example of Nabi Ibrahim. So this is stubbornness, and we see the example of what stubbornness is. The second example that we have in the Holy Quran is the story of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right? Nabi Ibrahim comes to his father and his community. Now it's actually his person who raised him, and he calls him his father. إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ, this is from Surah 21, verses 51 through 54. إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ مَا هَذِهِ التَّمَاثِيلُ الَّتِي أَنْتُمْ لَهَا عَاكِفُونَ. He says to the father and the community that what are these idols that you're holding on to, right? Why are you worshipping these idols? You know what their response was? قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا لَهَا عَابِدِينَ. Subhanallah. Yeah? Subhanallah. They said, we saw our fathers doing this, that's why we're doing this today. How dare you, Ibrahim, tell us we can't do what our fathers have been doing? How dare you, Ibrahim, tell us our fathers worship something and we can't worship something? This is stubbornness, but it didn't stop there. Their stubbornness led to intolerance. Why? They actually threw him into a fire as a punishment. That's intolerance, right? Now, not only do I not agree with you, but I'm going to harm you because I don't agree with you. My brothers and sisters, we're going to stop here for today, right? But this is probably the most important lecture I'm going to give in this entire series, today and tomorrow. Because this is a quality that exists within most of us. Yeah? Whatever side of the coin you're on. Yeah? We have things about which we are stubborn. And we have to be very careful that when we are stubborn about something, that we are willing to listen to the other side without prejudgment. Yeah? Without making up our minds about this. Because if we don't, we are going to become intolerant of each other. And when we become intolerant of each other, our communities will break. Yeah? Our communities, we have already seen this. Yeah? We will become groups because of maraja. This is this person's follower, this is this person's follower. Islam never asked us to do that. Islam never told us to do that. It's our own intolerance that leads to that. Yeah? And so I hope that you will take these words for what they are. Yeah? It's God's words. That's what makes this so beautiful. And ponder and reflect about where we are in life to see what we need to do to improve. And inshallah, tomorrow we will go into how to fix the stubbornness that is there within us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You know, today we get the example of one who overcame his stubbornness to find the light of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, the light of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. We gave the example in the beginning that 30,000 people heard the message of Imam al-Hussein and didn't accept it because of their stubbornness. But there was one man and his family by the name of Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. You know, Hur is an inspiration for me and is an inspiration for a lot of people. You know, a person who maybe had led a life that was not how God wanted that life to be to certain extents. But yet there was something within him which found Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And I pray that we are amongst those who find the Imam of our time, inshaAllah. You know, it is said that when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was making his way to Kufa, Ubaidullah bin Ziyad sent a battalion to block the Imam alayhi salam, to intercept the Imam. Our Imam on his journey from Makkah stopped at a place called Sharaf. And in the land of Sharaf, he asked his companions to fill all their water skins. He said, there will soon come a time when we need to use this. The Imam alayhi salam continued with his companions on their journey until they reached a place called Dhu Husam. When they reached this place, it is at this time that the battalion of Hur ibn Yazid reached that same location. Imam alayhi salam saw the signs of thirst on the faces of those people. And so he ordered his companions that give all the water that we have to them. Allahu Akbar. It is said that not only did Imam al-Hussein make sure that the army drank water, but he made sure that even the animals of that army had water to drink. We say to him, Ya ibn Rasulillah, look at how the tides turn only a few days after when you get to Karbala. That when it was the cries of Al-Atash from the Khaymaga that were coming, the response from the other side was, Hussein, you will not taste water after today. How things were different with the akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. It is said when it came for the time of Zuhr, Imam alayhi salam told Hur, O Hur, we will see to our salah and you see to your own salah. You know what the response of Hur was? He says, Yabna Rasulillah, we will pray behind you. The people knew who Hussein was. The people knew the position of Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, yet their animosity and their stubbornness led them to do what they did. After the Imam alayhi salam finished his salah, he turned towards all those who were praying behind him and he said that you, O people of Kufa, had invited me with bags full of letters. And now that I am trying to get to Kufa, you are intercepting me and not allowing me to proceed. Hur stands up and he says, O Hussein, I did not send any letter to you. I have been ordered by Ibn Ziyad to stop your progression to Kufa. The Imam alayhi salam looks at Hur and says, O Hur, death is much closer to you than you can imagine. Imam alayhi salam gathers his companions and they leave and they end up in Karbala. Hur stays on the side of Ubaidullah bin Ziyad, we are told, until the day of Ashura. When the drum beats were starting and when the arrows were being readied to fire on Aba Abdullah, Hur looks at Umar ibn Sa'd and says, Ya Umar, amuqatil anta hadha ar-rajul? Do you really intend on fighting this man? Hur never imagined that it would get to that stage where they would be fighting the daughter of Zahra alayhi salam. And so when he asks Umar ibn Sa'd, Ya Umar ibn Sa'd, amuqatil anta hadha ar-rajul? Faqala Umar ibn Sa'd, wallah, aysaruhu anir ru'ud. He says, by God, I plan on separating the head of Hussein from his body. It is said at this time, Hur ibn Hur begins to ride his animal in a slow gallop towards Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. A person by the name of Muhajir from the camp of Hur looks at Hur and says, Hur, why has your complexion changed? Why is it that you look like you're afraid? If someone had asked me that who is the most courageous one in our army, وَالنَّارِ. He says, I see myself between heaven and hell, and wallah, la akhtaru ala al-jannati shay'a. He says, by God, I will not select hell for anyone. I will not give up Jannah for anyone. It is said he rides his horse towards the camp of Aba Abdullah. When he reaches the camp of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he disembarks from his horse. He comes in a humble manner to Aba Abdullah. He says, "Oh Hussein, assalamu alayka yabna Rasulillah. I come to you in a state of shame. I come to you in a state of embarrassment. It is I who stopped your progress from where you are going." He says to Hussein, "Ya Hussein, ana ta'ibun ila Allah, ila ma sana'tu." He says, "Oh Hussein, I am regretful to Allah for what have I done. فَهَلْ تَرَى لِي مِنَ التَّوْبَةِ. Do you think Allah will forgive me?" This was the kind of man Hur was. He was worried about what Allah would think. You know the reply from the Imam? فَقَالَ لَهُ الْإِمَامُ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ أَهْلًا وَسَهْلًا يَا Hur. He says, "Welcome, O Hur. There are no grudges here, O Hur. There are no old sentiments here, O Hur. Anta wallahi al-hurrun fi dunya wal-akhirah. You are by God a free man in this world and the hereafter." And then Mu'mineen, Hur does something remarkable at this time. It is said, Hur says, "Yabna Rasulillah, do you allow me to go and apologize to the ladies of the Ahlul Bayt?" He goes to the camp, and outside the camps of Zainab and Kulthum, it is said he falls and picks up dirt and throws dirt on his face, and he says, "Ya Haram Rasulillah, oh the family of Rasulullah, I stand before you, the guilty one who prevented you from going anywhere you wanted, and I am the one who caused you to be in this pain." And then he adds another line after that. He says to them, "I am hopeful that you will not complain to your mother Fatima." It is said cries were coming from the tents of the ladies. And then he goes back to Imam al-Hussein. He says, "Yabna Rasulillah, kuntu awwalu kharijun alayk, fa'adhin li liyakuna awwalu qatilun bayna yadayk." He says, "Oh Hussein, I was the first one to stand against you. So allow me to be the first one to die in your name." It is said Hur fought a valiant fight. Hur was surrounded from all sides. Hur's horse became lame and he fell to the ground. The enemies began striking the body of Hur. Rahimallahu man nada wa hurra. That Allah, may you have mercy on Hur. It is said the companions brought back the body of Hur to Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein placed the head of Hur on his lap, and he said to him, "Bakhin, bakhin laka ya Hur. Congratulations, O Hur. Anta hurrun kama samatka ummuk." He says, "Indeed, you are a free man the way your mother had named you." فَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنقَلَبٍ يَنقَلِبُونَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون. ماتم حسین.
Ya Hussein, या हुसैन 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 या हाय अब्बास 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 जलते खैमों से सदा आई सुए कर वो बला हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास लो खबर जल्द के अबे सर सजाद जला हाय अब्बास 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 मेरे गाजी मेरे सफदर मेरे मीरे लश्कर देख बे आस है परदेस में तेरी ख्वाहर कट गया सिबते पैगंबर का भी सजदे में गला हाय अब्बास 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 बैन करती हुई लाशें पे चली आऊंगी जितने नासूर कलेजे में है दिखलाऊंगी मेरी तकदीर में कुछ भी नहीं अशकों के सिवा हाय अब्बास 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 तन्हा 18 बरादर की बहन है बन में तन्हा 18 बरादर की बहन है बन में नींद क्यों आ गई है भाई बताओ रन में नींद से जागो छिनी नबे मुज़तर के रिदा हाय अब्बास 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 मेरा अकबर मेरा कासिम मेरा असगर ना रहा दो मेरे लाल थे दोनों में से कोई ना बचा ना कोई भाई भतीजा ना कोई है बेटा हाय अब्बास 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 भाइयों से तो बड़ी आस हुआ करती है भाइयों से तो बड़ी आस हुआ करती है हर बहन भाई के हक में ये दुआ करती है अश्क है सर पे, नहीं ज़ैनब के रिदा। हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास। खाली कूजे लिए बच्चे हैं दरे खैमा पर, सुए दरिया है लगी बाली सकीना की नजर, कहती है बच्चों से आते हैं अभी मेरे चचा। हाय अब्बास 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 हाय अब्बास। या हुसैन 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 हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन। गमे हुसैन मनाना बहुत जरूरी है, गमे हुसैन मनाना बहुत जरूरी है। हुसैनी शामा जलाना बहुत जरूरी है, हुसैन मनाना बहुत जरूरी है। गमे हुसैन मनाना बहुत जरूरी है। रहे निजात में खुर्शीद जिंदगी के लिए, रहे निजात में खुर्शीद जिंदगी के लिए, बका के वास्ते खालिक की बंदगी